I'm so excited to talk to all of you. And what I particularly love about all of your shows is because this is the limited series panel, all of you approached this first day on set like it was literally like your first day with these characters, no matter how much time you'd spent with them and any other amount of time that you had played them, for you, Colin. But I'll start with you, Stephen, sir. What do you recall first on your first day of set? What is the most memorable day when you knew you were undertaking this, especially for you as someone that created the show, was writing the show, and did all of the rehearsal to get to that moment of that first day on set?
Um, Great question. For me personally, we shot it out of sequence, so we shot episode 3 first. So for me, it was that being able to be a part of the process as a producer and watching it develop. They'd spend how we worked it. We spent like a week rehearsing, which is it's never heard of in our industry, as we know. Do you know what I mean? So we treated it like a play. You spend a whole week with just the actors and Phil, our wonderful director, and Matt, the DOP. So we spend a whole week getting to know the text, and also Jack was there as well, and myself, Jack, our wonderful writer. So you spend that whole week understanding the text and getting to live it and immerse it and ask as many questions as you want. And then the second week, you have that technical movement of it. So we get to move around with the camera. And then the third week is the week of the take. So you do 2 takes a day. And I was on another job. So I only came on the Wednesday of the third week to watch and to watch what they were doing, what Erin and Owen were doing in that episode 3, which is which is the scene with just the two of them, the whole kind of interrogation scene. To watch that was absolutely beautiful. To really watch that come alive and watch that grow take by take by take was unbelievable. So for me, that first experience of being on set and the conversations me and Jack had and these ideas and watching these characters come to life was that moment of watching the two of them while we were in a room with the monitor with a couple like 3 or 4 monitors, a few of us in the room watching it, and I was just in awe of watching it. Do you know what I mean? So that was my first real experience of thinking, shit, this little idea that I had in here with these two people talking is now in front of me. It was mind blowing. It was mind blowing. Yeah.
Ah, that's so incredible. And Cooper, for you, sir, no pressure. You had a few credits prior to that, but you're stepping onto stage with Javier and Chloe, you're incredible, Nicola, everybody, and it's telling this story that I know you had a personal sort of like story with even. What was that like for you? I bet it was surreal.
Yeah, it was definitely surreal and exciting, terrifying, all of the things. And it's a lot of pressure, one, just kind of getting that big opportunity and having to show up and deliver. And hopefully, you just want to do a good job, but also you have a responsibility to tell this story that is true, and these are real people, and it's something that is happening right now, still ongoing. So I think just the pressures of that, the pressures of wanting to be good and do a good job, and it was a lot, but ultimately so exciting and like such a dream come true. I remember just feeling so like, wow, my dreams are right in front of me happening right now. So that's just a beautiful experience.
I love that one. Mr. Brian Tyree Henry, sir, what about you? Because I know even you stepping on set, it was obviously still a journey already, also being an EP of Dope Thief, to get to that moment. I think you may have met your co-star a week before that, maybe a day.
Well, with Dope Thief, I tried to be as method as possible. So I robbed as many people. I did as much meth as possible. Because I really wanted to experience. No, it was truly the most gratifying experience to be able to step into the EP position, which was something I had always wanted to experience, which I kind of already felt like I was kind of doing with my previous shows and productions, giving my voice and having my say in what I wanted my characters to do and experience, but I just wasn't credited that way. So to finally get the credit was like, cool. But what they don't tell you when you EP is that they're actually going to listen to you. Like, so when it came to casting, I was a part of that. When it came to making the tough phone calls and decisions. I was a part of that. So one of the tough phone calls that I had to do at the beginning of the show was calling Wagner and pleading with him to come and join us because we and also like it's interesting because Wagner, you know, who is my brother in life. I love this man beyond measure. And because of that love, I respect him a great deal as well. So I knew what we were asking him to do. And so when I called him to request his services, I was trying to talk him out of it because I was like, you know, there's a lot going on. This first episode is kind of crazy, you know, and he was like, well, English is my first language and I'm coming from Brazil. And I was like, I absolutely get it, dude. Like, you don't have to. And so at the end of the call, he very much was like, well, you convinced me, like I'm totally coming. And I was like, shit. Like now I've thrown this thing at this man to do. But it was the best decision ever. I mean, we fired him right out of the cannon. Like he got the part on a Friday and he was on set on a Monday. And it's so crazy because the first thing we were filming was the scene in the van where we're about to go in and rob this trap house and pretend to be these DEA agents. And I remember him pulling me aside right before they called us on set and pulling me in this room and locking this door behind him and just like holding me and being like, I'm terrified. My name is Wagner. I have 3 kids. I'm married. Like he's just like with this whole thing. And so like I remember grabbing him and being like, well, I'm Brian. I'm your best friend. I got you no matter what. I'll be there for you. And immediately in that moment, I was like, oh, well, there's Ray and Manny. Like that's it right there. So I'm so grateful to have had such an amazing scene partner to play with, an amazing brother to have in this life. Like it was incredible. It was insane, but it was incredible.
I love that. And I love that you've already gotten to talk about Wagner because he is incredible. Also, check out The Secret Agent, which he was just in Cannes. It's like dope, dope, dope. Like boy's about to have a year. Let's just put it that way. But all of you have incredible scene partners. All of you have incredible scene partners. You'll all, I will say, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't the case, have done award-worthy performances. But I've watched interviews with all of you, and anytime anybody brags about any of your acting, the first thing y'all turn to, Cooper, you're talking about Nicholas or Javier. Steven, you're talking
Ari.
yeah, yeah, the art, yes, exactly. Stephen, you're talking about Owen or Aaron, and of course, for you, Brian, you're talking about Kate and Wagner. And so I think all of y'all have had scene partners where you, as an actor, are sitting across them in a take, being like, Jesus, what are they doing? I'd love for you to talk about what was one of those moments for you when your scene partner absolutely blew you away and then made your performance that much better because of what they were giving you across on the other side. And Stephen, I'll start with you, sir.
Again, another wonderful question. For me, one of my favorite things about what we did was Christine, who plays my wife. We've known each other. Our mums were best friends, and we're both from the same place in a little place in Kirby, in Liverpool, called Kirby. So we've known each other, and we've kind of followed each other's careers, and you know we've known each other for a long time, and we've been very close. So when I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to insist that she was cast in this role, you know, as Brian's just said, being an executive producer, you can bring things to the table and you are listened to, which is something which is a wonderful position to be in. And we were very fortunate because, you know, our marriage partners, Netflix, they basically allowed us to do that, especially with respect to, I wanted the authenticity to be absolute for this particular role. Do you know what I mean? And you can imagine there were a lot of names that were thrown around the room, and I was like, I'm sorry, no, I think they're beautiful and marvelous, but this person has to be authentic and has to be true. And I also wanted, Christine's got a beautiful career and she's a wonderful actress, but I wanted people to feel like they discovered somebody and they were like, wow, I've never seen her before. And so for me personally, that process of when we were in rehearsals, episode 4, and when we were, you know, and also Madeline, who played my daughter, she was a find, and Owen, as we all know, was a find, but they'd never worked before. So to have that kind of family feeling and that really taking care of each other, really nurturing each other, to watch Christine and Madeline kind of go out shopping together to go and buy some clothes for the character and stuff like that, you know what I mean? That was beautiful. That was real kind of, you very rarely get that opportunity. But then a moment in the kitchen, I remember we were doing we were about to do a take and we were doing a little rehearsal and stuff. And we just had this moment in the kitchen and I just went, It reminded me of my aunties and my uncles when I was a kid, and so it was real and it was true. And we'd grab hold of each other and we'd go, "We're just two kids from Kirby. We're just two kids, two kids from Kirby, and we're doing it." Do you know what I mean? So it was glorious in that respect. And one of my favorite moments in the whole thing is after we've come back from the hardware store and she gets out to the van and she hangs the coat up, and it gets me, it gets me very emotional just thinking about that moment where she does it, because to me it's the authenticity and it's the truth, and that's every strong woman I was brought up with, for me personally. Do you know what I mean? My mother, my aunties, my nana, that kind of holding it all together and keeping it all in and trying to just carry on. And so to watch her do that and have that moment, and that's where every person involved in the piece had kind of their own ownership of it, because that was a note that was given to us by, by Mona at Netflix after she'd seen a couple of takes, and she said, "Oh, I think it would be beautiful if we had a moment with her there." Sorry, during the script, if we had that moment with her. So that was where it was kind of, we were open and we listened to everybody's kind of ideas to try and find the best possible piece we could make. And I just feel that moment is so good. And what's brilliant as well is the way they pass the camera upstairs and they follow it upstairs and the camera. So that whole piece is like what you were saying a minute ago. Acting's not a game of golf. It's a collaboration between all of us, both in front and behind the camera. So that was that true kind of beautiful moment of it all coming together for me. Yeah, it was a joy. It was an absolute. It was a joy to do. Do you know what I mean?
It was brilliant to watch. Like, it was.
I mean, I can't say it's a joy to watch. It's tough. It was like, because what he's just talking about, like, I'm picturing that scene. And I'm like, tears are coming because I see her and it's beautiful.
It's that pain that she was in. Do you know what I mean? But again, it's look, and the beauty of that for me personally is me and her both used to get the bus when we were going to school. Do you know what I mean? So we have that history, we have that love, and we have that.
Wow.
So yeah, thank you.
That's how you make stuff. Like, that's how you make things. Like, that's that, and you can feel it. You can feel it every single frame. You feel it. Like, it's brilliant.
Cooper, follow that up. Sorry.
Lay some butter on it, Coops.
I know,
Well,
you got it. And I want to make sure Ari Grainer, your scene partner in this one, I didn't want to make sure we get her full name out here because,
yeah,
definitely one that we want to highlight.
I was gonna say my first scene that I did with her, which was our first scene together in the show in episode 3, where we're in that room, the interrogation room, and she's saying, and you made this mistake, and you did this, and you did this, and you did this wrong, and I'm not gonna let you make any more mistakes. And she kind of leans in, and she just became Leslie, like this person who I had been watching on YouTube for months, years at that point, and who I knew so well. And when she showed up and just, it looked so effortless and just came out of her so effortlessly, it allowed me to step in so much easier and be, authentic in those moments. But when you just said, Stephen, about it's the people in front of the camera and also behind the camera, that sort of made me think of this one moment very early on in shooting, where it was from episode 1. I think it was like my 3rd day of shooting, maybe, and it's the really intense emotional stuff in Dr. Oziel's office, the therapist, and there's like one shot where it kind of like the camera like comes up almost like it's gonna go up my nose, up my nostrils, and the camera's so close, and Eric's like having, he's getting emotional about something, and we cut, and our B-cam operator and our focus puller, she was on the camera right there and was basically like sitting in my lap, and she just like puts her hand on my thigh after the take and was just like, that was really nice. And I was like, oh my God, like I needed to hear that. Like I needed that like little bit of validation to know like, okay, I'm doing okay, I'm doing a good job. And that was like day 3. And from that point on, she was always in the room there, and I felt such a safety and a comfort, and like I knew I could do it if she was there. And her name's Sarah Brandeis, and she was like, oh, just the best. And she's such a rock star. That also, after one of the episode 5 takes, she would come up behind her little focus puller monitor, and she'd be like, yeah, so
Don't we
yeah,
all need a Sarah in our lives
we
on
do.
all
Dude.
day? Can we just say it? Um, Brian, for you, sir, sort of same question. A moment where, again, that collaboration that we're all talking about, where you're staring across from either a scene partner or somebody that's not across from you in the scene, somebody that helped you in the crafting of this character, where you're like, yeah, this made this better.
Dope Thief had a lot of elements going on because, there's so many people necessary to make it happen where you're dealing with two, addicts running through the streets of Philly. Because we were really using the atmosphere of Philly. So Philly in and of itself is a completely another character. And so you're in different areas and different people's houses, and like you're on under overpasses, and like and there are particular days where you just don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know what the weather of Philly is going to be. Like, so you're in the streets, like truly in the streets, because these characters are about that life. Like, that's just what it was. And I don't think any of us within the show, were natives of Philly, but like we had an entire Philly crew. So everyone that was our crew was predominantly from Philly. And so I immediately just wanted to make sure that we had nothing but respect for the streets, for every neighborhood, for every alley I was running down, for any time at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm shooting a gun in the air, like, because like this is their home. Like it was all, so we're very precious about that. However, having truly the luxury of working with Ridley Scott, who is definitely not from Philly, was really amazing because there are some scenes where we're literally out in the country, and there's this one particular area we're in called Ottsville, which is where the meth house is. And Ridley is incredibly special because you don't see him. Like Ridley is like in a trailer that's probably a mile away, chilling behind like all these screens like Minority Report, like telling people what to do. And the trailers are camouflaged. So you don't even know that this trailer is what he's in. Like he literally will camouflage it to look like an old busted methed out RV. And you're just like, when did the RV get there? And they're like, oh, Ridley's in there.
Oh,
Like,
that's Ridley.
yeah, it's
Oh,
just Ridley,
okay.
and I'm like, what's going on? And then there's like 6 cameras at any point in time. So you don't always know where the cameras are going to be. And so, I have to big up Wagner again in a big way because, this show, I think for the both of us was a departure from how people had seen us on TV previously. Like, people knew me from comedy and playing a rapper, and here you got Pablo Escobar, and so now here we are coming playing these 2 absolute fuck ups, like just unprofessional, unskilled, crazy, previously incarcerated, addicts trying to make a living. And I think for both of us, it was so much fun because like now we got to explore these different parts of who we are. We got to play with people's expectations. We got to like stretch people's imaginations of what they thought we were and kind of reset, which was something I was looking forward to do for a long time. I was like, this is great. Like, I don't think we honestly knew exactly like how gritty it was going to get because I was like, it's always dark. I was like, we're always in the dark. We're always covered in sweat. Like, it's just like there's always a gun in my hand. My hands are sticky because there's blood. Whose blood is this? Like, it was really great. And I think for Wagner, like there's some moments that I could go on and on. There's moments like when we're in a church, and he's in there praying because he wants to get his soul back, and I come in and I dip my fingers in the holy water. I improv. I was like, what if I just dip my fingers in the holy water and like try to clean myself and just like go and talk to him? And then we're swearing in this church because he really believes that he's going to get salvation. That was great. Holding a grenade in the back seat of a car with this man, like being shot at by juggalos. Like it was all truly wonderful. Vomiting on him, like that was one of my favorite moments. I was like, get the vomit on Wagner. This is like the best day of my. I'm gonna vomit, and I was like, we can do another take. Pour more, have him pour more clam chowder in my mouth, and it was great. So I couldn't have asked for a better person. But then you get the opportunity also to like share the screen with legends like Kate Mulgrew, and Ving Rhames, like, and I was like, oh, they're both going to be my parents. It's like I can't every single day that I got to be on set with mom, because I have adopted her as that. She's adopted me as her son, and I only call her Ma. She's in my phone as Ma. She signs
Mhm.
her own text messages as Ma with the shamrock all the time because she really wants you to know she's Irish. Um, and so, like, you're literally watching a master class and you're playing, and like, it's so funny because the relationship between Ray and Teresa is fraught with lies, kind of. Like, every single corner, Ray is lying to her. Every single time he's trying to come up with the way, but she's the most special person in his life. Like, he's doing everything he can to protect this woman, and all of the protection comes from lying. Like, I'm not gonna tell my mom that I'm stashing all my dope and all my guns and all my money in her attic. She doesn't need to know that, but she knows it. And so, like, but then you're with somebody who's so sharp as Kate. Like, she's so sharp. So anything you throw, she's ready to just like go with it. And it's like, I feel like an actor's dream. Like, I feel like, and also she is a smokehouse. Like, she is absolutely beautiful. Like, she's absolutely gorgeous. And so in this character, you got to see her have a departure because, like, you see her like hoisting up her like her brassiere and like having her legs out. She's like, I'm going to go see your dad. And you could clearly tell that her and my dad really have sex. And I'm so uncomfortable by all of this. And it was just so much fun. And I really left this set with family. Like, I left this set with family. And also, really quickly, the crew unmatched. Like, anytime I was going through anything really deep or anything that really brooding, or they would be there with me. They would lay on the floor with me sometimes. They would come down there and make sure I was okay. Like, every single person, the DP, the grips, like, every single person was invested in this show. So much so that when we went on strike, you know what I mean, we were on strike for about 7 months, and I was like, y'all got to do what you got to do. You have to eat. Like, I would love to have you back, but I absolutely understand you got to make a living. And when the strike was lifted, every single person came back. Like, not one person jumped ship. Everyone, came back and was like, we are invested. We're here for you. So when you get moments like that, which people need to understand are very rare, you cherish it, and it makes you as an actor want to literally do your best, be there, be prepared, show up for everyone, buy cupcakes, get a food truck. You know what I mean? Like, you just want to do what you can to let people know that this show is made possible because of their heart and what they do. So, and you leave different. You do leave, hopefully better. But it was truly one of the best master classes I've ever had.
Well, all of your shows are that way. I feel every single one of these shows could teach a lot of people, not just about acting, but just about filmmaking.
We
From
had a lot of food trucks.
yeah,
Be careful with the food trucks.
but let's dive into your individual shows. Cooper, I'll start with you because first of all, you're coming into a limited series, but there'd already been the previous iteration, the previous season, obviously, that centered on Jeffrey Dahmer. So this is working within an anthology, but a new story. And we're examining two of the most famous survivors, brothers, one of the most famous trials that ever has existed. But you really have to make it about this boy and his brother, what they did, what their family did to them, and you have to keep it very grounded. And one of the things I think was so interesting about how you played it is this was still, I think you did both. Like, you had to like get really immersed in the details, but then throw it away. How did you do that? How did you sort of say, yes, some of this needs to be very accurate because it lives in people's minds, but it also still has to be a character that I know and can play every day?
Yeah, I think I just did as much watching as possible. If I wasn't working, I was watching. And I think if you have the luxury of having so much footage of the person that you're playing, the more you watch, the more you sort of soak it up like a sponge, and then it's becomes fairly easy to then step in and start talking like them or it being in their body because you just inherently know after so much time of watching and listening. And I would also, like, while I was listening, I would try to talk with him at the same time and try to talk in his sort of cadence of the way that he speaks, and I would match with my body and I would just do all of that stuff so that you're right, when I would go to work and get onto the set, it just kind of was there. I didn't have to think about it. And yeah, I guess in terms of it was all I would say that it was all accurate. It's just some of the things, the accuracy comes from what other people said was true, which maybe wasn't true. And some of it wasn't true. It's just that at the time there were people who did make these assumptions or who did believe that this is what happened. And so we put that in the show. So we had those people's perspectives because everybody had an idea of what the case was at the time. And so we wanted to put all of them together and allow people to sort of have a collection of what it was, a collection of perspectives to see what it was like at the time and to try and sort of understand what they believe based off of seeing what everybody else believed at the time. And so, but that sort of didn't really affect me or my process. I just kind of stayed true to my point of view on my character and sort of like let the show, you know, have its way with where it was going to go. I guess I just tried to stay true to my guy. And I think that's all you can do, really.
And did a great job with it, I might add. Was there, you said you made it easy. Was there something, whether it be a piece of music, maybe it was Blame It on the Rain, let's be real, it's iconic in the show.
It wasn't Blame It on the Rain.
I'm just kidding. That got you into him quicker. Because I know for some characters, like if they have a lot of accent work, it may be a phrase. And I know you did some of that, especially with like his mannerisms and how he moved to kind of support that. So what was if you had to find him on a day, what was the device that got you to him quickly?
I think I had a playlist that was titled The Hurt Man. And if I was doing something, there were a collection of songs. Either if it was something that was really heavy and emotional, I had found a lot of music that didn't have any lyrics, but was more sort of vibes or like a melancholy type songs or just sort of like underscores. So I had stuff that would make me feel sorrow or like lonely or, you know, a longing, grief. And then I would also have things that would make me feel anxious. Like the thing that's coming to mind right now is like there's like some weird music from the Arrival score, where it's like these kind of intense drums. And so, you know, if I was getting ready to shoot the thing where the police are, you know, outside the house and we have to come out after, you know, we you know, did the horrible deed, I would be listening to that music for the adrenaline. Or, you know, there was, you know, music that would make me feel anxious, and they were all, yeah, they were all sort of like instrumental tracks. So I did have a couple of songs from the White Lotus soundtrack, which is funny. But yeah, it was like soundtrack stuff or score that I would listen to. Yeah.
I mean, they did okay at the Emmys. You could like put that on the frequency. I'm just kidding. For you, Brian, you had some accent work in this one. Was there a phrase that got you into the Pittsburgh accent? Like, I don't even know how you would do that.
Jens guys going to still again?
And what I would do is, I'm such an idiot though, because look, my family's from DC. So like the Philly DC kind of like slang and drawl is very close, especially because look, you've got the Delco, which is predominantly white, and then you've got, you know, black and urban, you know, it's completely different. But I would, so embarrassing. I would do this thing. I would use the word meatballs. I would literally go, meatballs. What do you mean how many meatballs? what about my meatballs? You don't like eating meatballs? Like, and I would do this. Sorry. I would do it in between and before every take. One, to break Wagner as hard as I could, like to break Wagner as much as I possibly could, and just to like really get the so absurd accent out of the way. So therefore, when it was time for me to like really talk, I could get out of the way. But then what would kill me is that the crew started doing it. So like you've got people saying meatballs all over here and doing it, but there were so many different things because also like speaking of adrenaline, it's an adrenaline show, like, and so anytime that cut was called, I made sure to completely drop Ray because like I had to leave Ray where he was. There is one particular scene where me and Wagner are on this prison bus and like my character is in a wheelchair and behind a gate. And not only that, I'm like handcuffed to the wheelchair. And in between each, because we couldn't really get off the bus, so we had to like stay on the bus and circle around. And Wagner's face is destroyed, like just like cuts and slashes and all this stuff. And so, like the best thing that I could do is just like as soon as the cut was called, is just like trip with him and laugh with him and just like do everything we could, and also just get him to say the dumbest things while his face was mangled because it was like I was like, when are we gonna get this again? Like I was made sure that we would take prom pictures together while he looked like that. I was like, it just felt you kind of needed that levity for these two because you're still dealing with these two grown men who have been incarcerated since they were 15 years old. So they're still technically 15. Like in my mind, like I was like, they're still stuck in this adolescence. So, so I've been Cooper stop. That was funny. I've been doing that all day. But yeah, they're stuck in this thing, and so we just wanted to always make sure that you saw this kind of juvenile, kind of like kamikaze-ness between these two. So yeah, it was always a mixture of how to lock in, but I always made sure that when cut was called, that Ray, I had to like leave him because we shot this show in order. And so as each episode goes on, Ray is just going through this descent of it's getting darker and darker. And so I just had to make sure that I had some kind of levity, no matter what, between each take. Yeah.
We're gonna start to talk about some of the scenes that I think, like when I was watching them the first time, I was like, and the Emmy, like I could hear the Emmy music playing, like when they do the cuts, like with your scenes where it's like, this is gonna be in a montage before somebody gets nominated, be like, and Brian Tyree Henry, and they show the scene with you like crying towards the end with Kate, like that, you know what I mean? And Steven, the scene where it played for me was episode 3. Like that was insane. Just the minute I knew it from the first moment, but the minute I saw episode 3, I was like, this is insane. This show is a play. It is a thriller. It is just a complete commentary on some of the biggest ills that we have in our society. And it's only 4 episodes. It was crazy. But as an actor, not as Steven the producer, Steven the writer, Steven the person, like you said, that thought of this from the blank page, as an actor, what I was particularly noteworthy of was the physical movements that you did as your character begins to discover that his son has committed this terrible act, as he witnesses the footage and literally like has to physically turn away from it. I know that was something that was born in rehearsal. I know that was something that you also tried to make very live and kinetic on the day. Uh, I'm curious when you started working out those moments because, like, in particular, the scene moment I'm thinking of is when he literally is like turning his body away from it. I just want to know the first time you did that in rehearsals, when you knew that was going to end up in the final take, how you sort of scoped that out.
Um, with respects to that particular moment, we they filmed, obviously Owen and the kids went out and filmed it way before. And that's where it was difficult because as an executive producer, you get to look at everything and see everything. But I consciously didn't want to see that. So obviously, I trust Phil, I trust Hannah, I trust everyone, I trust them all that it will look great. So I didn't want to see it. And the actual take that we used for this particular episode was take 2. And I think largely that was because my son, Alfie, was with me for that first day. So I think that had a major impact on everything. Because I went to work with my boy in the morning and I just wrapped myself around him. I just wrapped myself around him and wrapped, he was present. He was with me. He was watching on a monitor, but he was with me wholeheartedly. So whenever I saw him in those moments, I just embodied him within that. Then I went into that, and obviously Owen's such a wonderful young man. With that particular moment, we hadn't seen it, so the first time we see it is when we first see it. So none of us have seen it. So for that first take, we are all seeing it for the first time. We try to do that as often as we could within this process. So the first time we're seeing it, it's done, and that take went really well, and it was, and after it, and he says, "Dad," and I grabbed hold of him, and then we went for the second take, and again, we all talked about it. Each take we were a play, basically, as you said. We were in a very fortunate place where we can use both the beauty of both mediums. So we have that live freelance and that nuance and that freedom of theatre, but with that minimalistic style of acting where we're trying to make it as natural and as real as possible. So we were a crew, do you know what I mean? We were all together on this. Like what Brian said, I reiterate it wholeheartedly. The crew I worked with on this was second to none. They were magnificent. I've been very blessed in my career. I've worked on wonderful jobs with beautiful people. But there was something a little bit special about this particular piece because we were all equal. Every single person brought something to the table. Do you know what I mean? Everyone, from our brand new young runner right the way through to someone at the top in Netflix, everybody brought something. So in that process, Phil gave Owen a note. And don't forget, this is the first thing Owen's ever done. This is his only second. He shot episode 3, so now he's in episode 1, and it's the first job he's ever done. Phil gave him a note to touch me in that scene. And this is where he's brilliant. He's remembered that note for what? 50 to 54 minutes. He's remembered that note. It's in there. It's in his head as we're still doing everything live and real. And he went to touch me. And as he touched me, I recoiled. And I felt disgusted because my son had just committed that act, what I've just seen. And I looked him in the eyes 2 minutes ago, and he told me he didn't do it. So I went in there to back my son up. As any father will tell you, if your son says, "Dad, I didn't do it," you're like, "Okay, well, he didn't do it. Let's go." And march to the school. My son didn't do it. Actually, he did. It's like, oh, it's that truth and that honesty to go into it with. But that moment, when he touched me, I just felt disgusted in him, but then in the same respect, it just went through my head, and I just thought, no, hang on, he's still my son, he's my boy, and I just grabbed hold of him, and we just held each other, and and we just cried a little bit, and that was kind of how it happened. So it was one of those beautiful moments, and again, it was never the same twice. No take was ever the same. So we were fortunate that that particular take had the magic within every single element of it. But I do personally feel a lot of it was down to the fact that my son was there that day.
Wow. Get up. That's called no acting required. You just rig it. You just rig it to make it happen no matter what. Cooper, the scene I want to talk to you about, because I feel both in the best possible way, but in the worst possible way. So many moments from your show have been, I don't know, memeified, talked about, analyzed, rewound. Not going to say which one. But the scene that I actually found to be the most popular, as far as the one that was really indicative of who the character was, what he was dealing with, and the real horrors of his reality, was the scene with you and Javier with the toenails and the massage and the athlete's
Foot
foot.
cream.
Yeah, the foot cream. And it was just, it was everything. I think it was the most, I felt, explicit window into the abuse that we had because of how the manipulation, like we literally saw the manipulation playing out between your two characters. So I'd love for you to talk about that scene. Another one where you have a great scene partner, but one that I think like
Yeah, it's fine. He was
doesn't
fine.
get talked about as much, He's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't get talked about that much. I was it was my like first like one-on-one moment with, or well, maybe there was another one. I remember it being like, I remember feeling pressure of having a bigger scene with Daddy, as we called him. Um, and yeah, I think I I went into it as I did every other scene, and I just tried to, you know, like live in this nightmare and also try to get the love that I wanted. You know, in the beginning of the scene, he's actually being kind and sweet, and he's trying to care for me and or for him. And I think it's sort of jarring at first of like, oh, he's gonna he's gonna be kind. He's gonna help me with something that I don't understand. And then I think it totally just the rug gets pulled out again. It's almost like, oh, okay, I can let go. He's being nice right now. Yeah, and then when it flips, it's just so devastating. And I'm so glad also that they chose to write a scene like that versus showing, you know, the harrowing actual physical violence or sexual abuse. Like I'm glad that they did it that way to see sort of how it happened in the mind and like you said, like psychologically, the manipulation and emotional abuse and the shaming and all of that stuff. And I think also something that was starting to happen at that time as well, because that was episode 6. And I remember whenever the camera would start to get really close, like I think it first happened when we shot episode 5. Whenever I was in my close-up coverage, I would start to sort of imagine the camera as all of the people who have experienced some form of abuse or sexual abuse in their lives. And I think in a way it started to become bigger than just Erik and Lyle, and it started to be a you know a worldwide thing of wow, I'm representing one person, but the camera is all of them and all of these people who have been through this, and that started to really fuel my all of my scenes and all of my performances. And yeah, that was really powerful for me. And um, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was powerful to watch, obviously. And again, I think with all of your shows, you could pick any episode and find a moment of your character, I think, demonstrating why audiences fell in love with them, felt sympathy for them, felt they saw themselves in them. What's interesting about your character, Brian, in Dope Thief is the trap house scene, the very first one where we sort of follow them thinking at first that they may actually, or at least they're portraying themselves to be DEA agents. That's actually the most competent they are in the whole show. Like in that one scene
You never
before,
see it again.
never see it again.
Never see
And
it
I think
again.
that is so interesting for your characters because it kind of like introduces us to them and then we're like, this is all a lie. And so I think that's an interesting way to play it because actually, when I went back and watched it again, you kind of see them like between the two of them be like, we're not as good in this moment as we probably should be. It's
I,
interesting when you
it's
watch it.
funny rewatching it. I completely forgot that if you're starting the show, you don't know that DEA. I completely forgot that. I was like, I forgot that it starts with me just like, case in a house and we're talking about this, and I'm like, we put these badges on and we go on and do da 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 da. But that's the feeling it's supposed to feel like, right? Like we've done this a million times. This is what we do. Like it's our thing. And the whole argument from my best friend is that we need a third person because, like, we keep robbing from these kids and we don't know what's going to happen. And, I remember going into this house and shooting that scene where, somebody's upstairs, you hear the gunfire off, and Peter had made this decision. I'm brilliant. Like Peter Craig is just brilliant. I love this man's mind, but he can be dark. His brain goes to place. I'm like, how did you think of that? Who hurt you? And thank God they hurt you because it's gonna look great. But then when you find out it's like a kid at the top of the stairs and this young little kid that I had not seen before, we like is just standing there, with tears coming down his face. I'm like, oh my God, like this is all terrible. And then I got to give a speech and it's just we're running out. We come out and we like get in the van and we're like going through the money. It's still not enough money. But I think it was truly one of the best opportunities to really see how unserious and how like amateurish Ray and Manny are. Like how like kind of foppish in a way, like kind of Abbott and Costello at this thing that could really cost them their lives. Like it could really cost them their lives. But this whole thing of me talking about, the command voice, you gotta like, they're also quite bright, at the same time, they're also quite bright, um, but also incredibly codependent. It's like this is a codependent relationship. We do this together. And then right as you go through that, you then see this other turn of how lonely Ray is, how he really has become this isolated man. And then Manny is trying to start a life. He is at a barbecue and I'm bringing out like this concept of what they think normalcy is. And I often think about that when it comes to men who've been incarcerated, especially in a city like Philadelphia, which has one of the highest incarceration rates between black and brown men in the country. And like what life must be like, when they tell you, okay, you're free, like go get a job, like you still got to like check in with somebody. You still don't, and I always wanted to keep that in mind because I always felt that Array may be watching, like somebody is watching. And it's so crazy. I was very privileged to have this wonderful driver during this show. I called him Vaughn. And he passed away last year, unfortunately, in a terrible accident. But this was my brother. Like I started every morning and ended every day with this man. And like, like he was my everything. And I found out later as we were filming, we got really close. He would reveal things to me. And he revealed to me that he was incarcerated at one point in his life. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah. And also, people call me Ray. I was like, what? It's like, so his name is Ray Vaughn. And I didn't know that. And so, like, it's like, because of that, man, I felt an absolute responsibility to show him himself, and show him, what, like he was sent to me. I truly believe that he was sent to me during the show, and losing this man was such a terrible loss. But I'm so grateful that I had a spirit like him doing the show. Like, I mean, when I tell you every morning I started with this man, I would even be like, come on set. I want you to see this. I want, I want to make sure that I want to represent in the best possible way. And so, I always tried to play like a Ray was watching. And then I found out in the show there was a Ray watching the whole time. And so I just always try to keep that in the front of my mind. These men of Philly that, had gone through this terrible system that told them they couldn't be and wouldn't be anything. And also kind of give a cautionary tale, like, don't do this. Like, please don't do this. Like, use your skills to go get another kind of jacket that doesn't say DEA on it. Like, try to like know that, there are ways and, in a better way, So I just really wanted to make sure I kept that in the front of my mind. I never wanted to lose sight of like what rays may be a part of watching this and seeing it unfold.
I could speak to you gentlemen literally for hours, but I know you all have to go. You have very busy days. So I want to thank you all for participating in this panel, congratulate you all on your Emmys. And then also I want to thank the folks at the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. And thank you all again for watching.
I love you guys.